Okay, so in the Warcraft universe, you've got your regular villains, and then you have the old gods. We need to talk about them, because these aren't just bad guys. We're about to dive into a threat that's so ancient, it operates on a completely different level of reality.
They do not die, they do not live, they are outside the cycle. This line from someone who served them is kind of the perfect summary. It's so cryptic, right? They're not just powerful beings, they exist completely beyond our ideas of life and death. And that, well, that creates a huge problem.
So what happens when you try to kill something that isn't really alive to begin with? This is the exact question the godlike titans had to ask themselves when they first showed up on Azeroth. And the answer they found was, well, it was catastrophic. It basically defined the entire conflict for thousands and thousands of years.
Let's start right there, at the moment the Titans learned a really brutal lesson about dealing with these things. See, they were used to shaping stars and ordering the cosmos, but this was something else entirely. So their armies, the Titan Forged, just couldn't get the job done against the biggest and baddest of the old gods, Yogg-Saron. So Aman'Thul, the leader of the Titans, basically decided, fine, I'll do it myself. He literally reached down from the heavens and just tore the old god right off the planet's crust. But here's the thing. This massive show of force, it was a huge mistake. It turns out the old god had dug itself in so deep it was basically part of the planet. So when Aman'Thul ripped it out, he created this massive, gaping wound, the Well of Eternity, that started bleeding out the world's lifeblood. In trying to save Azeroth, he nearly killed it. And that horrific moment is when the Titans finally understood what they were really up against. These things weren't just invaders sitting on the world. They had become a part of the world. So what even are the old gods? The best way to think of them is as cosmic cancers. They're these parasitic horrors launched into the universe by the Void Lords, and their whole mission is to find a world with a world soul, basically a baby titan like Azeroth, and just infect it. They want to corrupt that soul from the inside out and turn it into a twisted, universe-devouring monster. 4 of these things slammed into Azeroth when it was young. They enslaved all the native elementals, and then, from their own flesh, they created these 2 horrifying races, the insect-like Akir and the faceless Naraki. And with these armies, they built something called the Black Empire, a nightmarish planet-wide civilization of pure madness. So this puts the Titans in a really tough spot. They've got 1 dead old god on their hands, but also a planet that's bleeding out. And there are still 3 more of these things buried in the crust. And this really lays out their impossible choice, right? Option A, they could perform what's basically radical surgery. Rip out the rest of the cancers, but that would almost certainly kill the patient, Azeroth itself. Or, option B, they could try to contain them. Just leave them there and hope for the best, all while knowing this conscious, incredibly evil thing is still festering just below your feet. They chose containment. They built these massive, complex prisons to hold the last 3 old gods and put their most powerful guardians on watch forever. They hadn't cured the disease. They just put the planet into a kind of medically induced coma, hoping the cancer wouldn't spread. But as we're about to see, a sleeping evil can still whisper. Yeah, a sleeping evil can definitely still whisper. The Titans locked away the bodies of the old gods, sure, but their minds, their consciousness, that was still very much active. And from deep within their prisons, they started using their most dangerous weapon. See, their real power isn't about tentacles and giant eyeballs. It's their ability to whisper. For thousands and thousands of years, these whispers have just seeped into the minds of everyone on the planet. It's like this low, constant hum of paranoia and doubt that preys on your deepest fears and turns even the best heroes into monsters. And the most famous victim of this has to be Neltharion, the Earth Warder. I mean, his job was to guard the deep places of the world, so he was exposed to this stuff constantly. The whispers just twisted his noble purpose, turning the protector of Azeroth into Deathwing the Destroyer, who was basically a walking apocalypse. The old gods are also total opportunists. Fast forward 10,000 years ago, this magical cataclysm called the Great Sundering is literally ripping the world apart. Queen Ashura and her people are about to be wiped out, their city sinking into the ocean, and as the dark water is closing in, they hear a voice. And that voice gives them a choice: drown or serve. And Ashara, being proud and desperate, she chose to serve. The old god's power then twisted her and her followers, their bodies contorting into the snake-like Naga. They survived, but they became monsters, forever bound to the will of the deep.
So yeah, the old god's influence has just been shaping everything on Azeroth for ages. Now, let's jump ahead to the present day, where their story supposedly comes to an end. But, as you've probably guessed, the scars they left behind run deep.
Even when they die, the old gods find a way to corrupt the world. Remember Yogg-Saron, the one that got ripped out of the planet? Well, its last dying breath cursed the entire continent of Pandaria. It created the Sha, physical manifestations of negative emotions like fear, anger, and doubt. For 10,000 years, they've plagued that land, a constant reminder of what lies dead, but dreaming beneath the surface.
And that brings us to today. After all these millennia of war and madness, the last imprisoned old god, Enzoth, has finally been destroyed. The heroes of Azeroth have silenced the whispers. For the first time ever, the planet is free. Or is it?
It really looks like the ultimate victory, doesn't it? The cancers have finally been removed. But knowing everything we know now about how these things work, it's just not that simple.
The old gods might be dead, but their legacy, their corruption, is everywhere. It's woven into the very history of the world, and maybe even the very nature of its people. And that leaves us with one last, kind of chilling question. How do you really win a war when the enemy has already become a part of you?